The soft muted roar of the deep blue, white-capped waves resonated from down below the ancient caverns cut out high within the rocks. The caverns had been home to dragons for millions of years, but the cut stone had been carved out and embellished by the mages within the recent centuries. Yet even now, the caverns still resonated with the deep rumbling, throaty thrums, threshing of wings, and the clack of talons. The Hall of Dragons was truly a special place. Anyone could request to join. While it wasn't necessary to be a mage, the recruits still had to be good with dragons. Or rather, the dragons had to get along with the recruits. Being a gifted mage or a great, strong, strapping warrior helped. But there was not much strength, sword, or magic could do for anyone after a fall from 10,000 feet into some chasm hundreds of miles away from civilization. Dragons were as unique and peculiar as they were dangerous, yet having air superiority over the nation's enemies was worth both the risk and all the expenses that came with housing them. While anyone could apply to be part of Dragon Hall, the actual selection process, from a humble stable hand to being outfitted and designated with the title as Dragon Rider, was often long and grueling. Most recruits either got discouraged, quit, got killed, or went missing. Dragons were nothing like the friendly creatures of silly children's books. To become a dragon rider took years of back-breaking labor before getting a fledgling to train or inheriting one from a rider that had either retired, been killed, maimed, or simply went missing. Ben didn't mind spending time with the dragons. He was so fascinated by them. While they weren't cuddly or bastions of wisdom, they weren't monsters either. They were dragons. But after serving 2 years in Dragon Hall as a stable boy, janitor, and boot shiner, he missed home, and he missed his friends and family. One more day. Ben yawned as he rolled out of the top bunk and rubbed the short, stubbly, shaven head as he stumbled towards the wash basin. When he looked up, his longtime bunkmate and friend was busily emptying out the small nightstand. "I'm leaving, Ben," Jason declared. "What do you mean? We'll be getting leave in 2 weeks," Ben exclaimed in shock. "I'm sick of it. I'm sick of everything," Jason growled. "I want to grow out my hair. I want to go back out into town. I'm tired of living like some damned minimalist monk," he growled. Ben grimaced. Everything Jason had said was true. Being a stable hand was worse than being a first-year mage in training at Founder's Keep. All their friends who had graduated were living the good life after they had chosen their respective guilds. But Jason wasn't that easily discouraged. Ben had never thought of him being so materialistic. He had stuck with him through thin and thick. "What do you mean? I know that. We all knew that coming in. What happened?" he asked. "I saw the list," Jason confessed. Hot, angry tears were running down his face. A concerned line formed over Ben's forehead. He and Jason had joined Dragon Hall together. "It's been 2 years, and there are 100 in front of us," he declared. Ben swallowed hard. "But that's all right. Things happen. Maybe we'll be called in to capture a nuisance fledgling from a farm or in town. Maybe a clutch of eggs will be hatched this year or next," he encouraged him. Or maybe a rider will retire and go missing, or die, Jason grunted. Ben grimaced. He hadn't wanted to bring that up. It was true, though. That was the only other way of getting a dragon, but it wasn't something he ever wanted to wish on anyone. Thomas has been waiting 10 years, and he isn't even on top 10, Jason added, and let out another agonized, heavy sigh. Folded his shirt into his suitcase and shut the lid. Think of it this way, Ben. I figure I'm doing you a favor. With me gone, you'll rise up faster. Ben was silent as his friend pressed a small glass jar full of acorn-sized, polished gray merit stones. Put these toward your leave time, he added. Ben felt a sharp pain well up in his chest. It was the pain of losing a friend and gratitude of his last act of generosity before going. It had been 2 years since Ben had seen his family, and he needed at least 20 stones to take leave. Of course, the merit stone could only be used after 2 years, which meant he would soon be able to apply. Unable to delay much longer, Ben went his way. The breakfast hall buzzed and bumbled with row upon row of fuzzy shaved heads. There were so many recruits, all eager, all striving, all hoping to one day possibly be able to ride a dragon, or even just be allowed to work with them. Dragons needed an extensive infrastructure and required a large number of resources to be kept happy. There needed to be kitchen workers, janitors, livestock keepers, security, stable masters, and of course, the dragons, and the dragon riders themselves. The hall was its own little micro-city unto itself. But right now, he felt alone in the large beehive. It was then a familiar voice called out his name. Ben turned. It was nearly impossible to find who had called out to him amongst the bland morning faces and shaved heads. "Ben!" she called again. He turned and was stunned by her embrace. Ben froze and blinked rapidly. It took a moment for him to recognize her. Her deep sapphire blue eyes, her cute freckles, and strange offset toothy smile sparked a distant memory. It was either May or was it Tori? May? He ventured to guess. May had been a novice mage 2 years behind him before he had graduated. May's eyes lit up, and she quickly nodded. "You remember me! I'm so happy!" she exclaimed. Ben smiled. How did you recognize me? It's been so long. I don't think even my own mother would recognize me now," he laughed. May sighed. She did miss those dark, thick curls, but his shaven head did make his neck and shoulders more pronounced. "Well, you just sort of have the very unique shaped head," she giggled. "And nobody else has ears like you do," she added. Ben felt his face go red as she reached up and touched his ears that had been mangled from boxing. "Oh, lots of people have busted ears," he huffed. "Lots of mage guards, but not very many mages," she teased him. Ben grimaced and quickly pushed her hands away. "Where's Jason?" May inquired. Ben's shoulders drooped. He left this morning," he sighed. "Oh, he got chosen! That's wonderful! You are probably going to be picked next," May gasped excitedly. Ben shook his head. "No. He's going back to Founder's Keep to continue his studies as a mage," he clarified. May's smile faded, It slowly began to register. But that's what you always wanted, to be a dragon rider, she gasped. Ben grimaced. Yeah, I know. This isn't like the books, May. It's taken me 2 years of scraping to even be a stable master, just to be able to see the dragons up close on the regular and have the privilege to shine the dragon master's boots and shovel their dragon dung. It might be years, maybe even decades before I'm assigned to a dragon, and even longer before it's even old enough to carry passengers. I might not actually even get to fly. I might do all the training and then keel over from old age, and some other recruit will hop in and take my place, he grunted. But May wasn't discouraged in the slightest. Oh, can you take me there? Take me to the stables to see them? To see them up close, she pleaded. Ben felt his heart pound beneath May's soft, gentle fingers as they rested upon his collarbone. Ben opened his mouth to say no. Okay, he heard himself say. His face burned as she planted a hot kiss onto his cheek. Mwah! When? Ben's dark, mahogany brown eyes darted back and forth like a cuckoo clock being wound up and recalibrated. While everyone is at lunch, he said quickly. May beamed happily. I'll save some breakfast biscuits. Ben's eyes went wide with panic, and he quickly pulled her close. No! No, you can't feed them, he insisted in a firm, hushed whisper. I meant for us. We'll be skipping lunch, May teased, as she tugged playfully at his worn-out gray shirt. No food. Not one crumb. Not anything. Don't wear anything flashy. No jewelry. No hats. No buttons. May scrunched her nose. Buttons? Will they nibble them off like goats? She remarked in surprise. She had been to a petting zoo once, when she was 6, and she had found that out the hard way. Ben sighed. Let's put it this way. Dragons don't nibble. So you can look, but that's all. Then we leave, and we never tell anybody about it, all right? He insisted. May nodded her head in agreement. Have you attempted a telepathic link with them? She asked curiously. Ben grit his teeth as May's voice bombarded into his head like a noisy one-man band beating a drum and blowing horns and bashing cymbals. Seeing his expression, May quickly apologized. Sorry, I forgot how much you don't like telepathy. It gives me the shivers. Don't do that again, he grunted. May smiled apologetically. I promise, she assured him. I meant it, May, Ben insisted sternly. May frowned. Why are you so uptight? I said I wouldn't. It's not like I'm using forbidden magic, she insisted. Ben wasn't swayed. It's bloody damn close, and it gives me the creeps, he grunted. Ben, she gasped, and shocked and offended that he would even imply such a heinous thing. Telepathy isn't at all the same as necromancy, she insisted. It's close enough, Ben insisted darkly. Necromancers don't ask permission or care if anyone else is home. Telepathy is just the first step. May frowned. She didn't like to think of such things. The thought of studying the dark arts hadn't even crossed her mind. For someone that hates it so much, you seem to know an awfully lot about it, she shot back defensively. I didn't learn it studying necromancy. I learnt it studying the Droon, and they're quite proficient in it, he warned. May bit her lower lip. The Marn and the Droon have been at war for decades. Supposedly, Marn and Droon had been one country until the divide. Ben still had family over on the other side and often spoke about them. May didn't believe another group of people could be so horrible, but Ben made them sound like monsters. But she sensed the tangible anger and dread resonating in his voice, and if she was ever going to see the dragons up close, she knew this wasn't going to be a good time to debate with him. "I won't do it any more," she assured him, and gave him a reassuring touch on the shoulder before heading off to finish her assignments. Chapter 7. Who is Molly? May grinned when she spotted Ben standing by the archway. Instead of getting into the lunch line and grabbing a food tray, she bounded after him. "Are you sure you aren't hungry?" she asked worriedly. Ben smiled and shook his head, but his stomach growled loudly in protest. "What happens if we're caught?" May asked. Ben grunted as he led the way through the winding stone hallways. "Just a tongue lashing, and you'll lose a few merit stones, but you won't be able to take a leave for a few years anyway," he shrugged. "Ben!" May gasped. Ben paused and glanced tiredly down at May. "You haven't seen your family in 2 years?" she gasped in shock. Ben grimaced. "I write letters. It doesn't matter. Jason gave me his, so I have a few to burn anyway," he chuckled. May saw him laugh, but she felt the tired sadness in it. "Are you sure?" she asked. Ben nodded and then brightened up. "We'll be fine. Just don't pull a Molly on me, all right?" he chuckled. May frowned. "Who's Molly?" she asked. "Don't you remember Molly from Founders?" "Oh, her," May scowled. "She was a snood. Nobody likes her," she huffed. Secretly, she was frightened Molly would steal Ben away while they were gone. "What did she do?" she asked curiously. Ben took in a deep breath before giving the short, tragic story of Molly. "Well, apparently, when no one was around, she climbed into the dragon pen, and one thing led to another. It took us 3 days to figure out she was missing." May suddenly felt guilty. She had hoped something bad would befall Molly. Maybe something like lice or poison ivy. But not that. Nothing like that at all. "Oh, Ben, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be so crass. Were you too close?" she asked worriedly. Ben shook his head. "Molly came to the hall a year ahead of me, so we didn't spend much time together. I just remember everyone getting a long lecture about not throwing off the dragon's feeding schedule, and how overfeeding them would make them sluggish and increase the cost to sustain them. We all assumed she had snuck off to town or went back home. We didn't know what really happened to Molly until we found a shoe while freshening up the stables," he explained. "So yeah, now you know the legend of Molly." May smiled and gave a nod. Irene had mentioned Molly to her, but she hadn't been brave enough to ask about it before. "All right, so the dragons are kept in here. Just don't make any sudden movements or wave anything about, and stay close," he instructed. May sighed. "Don't worry, Ben. You know me. I'm not a total idiot." "I won't climb in or try to pet them," she promised. With a nod, Ben unbolted the door, and they were greeted by the sound of a low rumbling thrums and threshing of wings that resonated within the white-washed walls. At the bottom of the stairs, their feet sank into the soft ashes. "Is this all from the dragons?" May asked. Ben shook his head. "Oh no, we bring in fresh ashes every week. The dragons use it for dust baths," he explained. May already knew this. Feral dragons like to bathe in ash as well, but it made sense to supply the ashes before the dragon tried to make their own. "How many fire breathers do you have?" she asked. "Only 3 are old enough right now, but we keep the ashes out so we don't have any sudden surprises before we are ready." A long head with shimmering jade scales curiously peeked over the stone barrier and greeted Ben with a soft, throaty thrum. "This is Hatter's," Ben announced as he stroked her scaly head. May gasped as Ben invited her over to meet the young female dragon. "Hatters, you're so lovely. I love your new scales. Have you shed recently?" she cooed softly, and then smiled toward Ben. "Her scales are so soft. She hasn't even gotten her horns yet," she marveled. Ben grinned. He knew there was a reason why he liked May. All the regrets of missing lunch and worries about taking her to see the dragons quickly melted away. Seeing May's sense of wonder and awe as she interacted with Hatters re-energized him, and all thoughts of despair and leaving the hall now felt like a distant memory. With May around, he was pretty sure he could be contented, stationed in the cold northern waste with only salted gruel every day. It was so good to see her again. Ben stepped back and smiled as Hatter's bright orange eyes rolled to the back of his head and thrummed happily. The happy thrumming quickly got the attention as several more dragons poked their heads out over the high walls and craned their long necks to see what the other dragon was getting that they weren't. "Ben, why does it say Jade on her stall?" May asked curiously. Ben grimaced. "Well, that's her name, but no one calls her that anymore," he chuckled. "Hatters isn't a very nice dragon name. Why do they call you such horrible names?" May cooed softly. Hatters thrummed happily before raising its head and ducked behind the stalls. May gasped as it lifted up a mangled goat and violently thrashed it around. The sounds of bone and joints snapping echoed throughout the stables. "She likes hats, that's why," Ben chuckled, but then put his hand on her shoulder and gave her a stern warning. "But seriously, don't ever walk in here with a hat on, or you'll wind up like that goat." "Or Molly," May remarked. "Or Molly," he agreed. May took in a deep, shaky breath as she stepped away, but Ben put his hand up and stopped her as she carefully guided her away from the stall behind her. "You don't want to get close to that stall. He is our bull drake. He can be a bit grouchy," he warned. "They've been talking about moving him off to a different colony in another province. We have been having trouble keeping him apart from Rex, our senior bull drake. He's the big gray crabby face over there with the full crown and black speckles," he explained. May sighed. "Poor Prince, you are so shy," she cooed. Ben grimaced. "Not exactly. Just keep away from the stall, all right?" he instructed. May nodded, and they continued down the row of stables where Ben introduced her to Luna, a shy bronze hendrake, and Melody was a bright-eyed, bubbly gray hendrake. "I always thought they would be bigger," she mused out loud. It was true. Ben remembered his first time. Dragons always seemed bigger in his mind. If only measuring from the shoulder, a Clydesdale horse stood taller, but with a dragon's long, swan-like neck, more than made up for its powerful short legs. They can get quite compact when they're settled down and their wings are folded. "Just keep on your toes. All that can change real fast," he cautioned. "But it's not their talons or their teeth that'll get you. It's their tail," he added. "All the books say that," May giggled. "Well, it's true. I lost 5 shovels to them," he chuckled. "Their tails are dexterous," May remarked in surprise. Ben nodded. "Yeah, they'll steal whatever is not tied down," he laughed. May sighed. "That's not what I meant. I meant that their tails can grab things, like monkey tails," she corrected him. Ben grinned. "Oh, yeah, that too," he chuckled. How do you keep them from getting out of their stables? May asked. Well, that's easy. I'll show you, Ben declared as they went over to demonstrate on an empty stall. Oh, wow. It looks more like a bank vault than a door, May marveled. Ben nodded. Yeah, it's pretty sophisticated. We have to come up with something that doesn't involve keys, he chuckled. I'm surprised there's only 4 cylinders. I would have suspected the dragons would have been able to figure out something so simple, May remarked. Ben shook his head. Dragons are smart, but I haven't heard of any of them being that smart, he assured her, and then frowned. That's strange. What is? May asked. It's, unlocked already. Just as he closed the stall door and locked it again, another door opened. Ben felt his blood go cold. May gasped and quickly moved close to him. Ben turned and his throat went dry when he saw the very moody prince strut out into the open and flex his powerful black wings. The soft, calm thrums turned to excited, fluted chortles, followed by the loud rumbling roar from Rex on the other end of the stables. What do we do? May whispered. Ben gulped as he slowly guided her back toward the door. Don't panic and don't run, he whispered. Aren't you going to put him back? May exclaimed. Not by myself, I'm not. Ben scoffed. I could help. I'm a mage like you, remember, she insisted. Ben swallowed hard. All right. Just stay calm. No sudden movements. Fast movements will trigger his prey reflex, he warned. Yes, but what do I do? May hissed impatiently. Close the door when I say. I can do more than just that, May insisted. Help me with the small things, and I'll trust you with the bigger things, he insisted as he picked up a shovel. The square iron head began to glow bright yellow. May bit her lip and gave a grim nod as she calmly maneuvered toward the door while Ben attempted to break up the 2 bull drakes. The young bull drake spun around, its fierce blue eyes locked onto the glowing red shovel. Immediately, his grievances with Rex were forgotten as he swayed his head rhythmically with the gentle motion of the shovel. The sharp claws rasped across the floor as Prince let out an excited, chortling click of his tongue and slowly lumbered toward Ben. Ben tossed the shovel into Prince's stall. The young bull drake glanced at the shovel and watched the hot metal fade back to black with mild interest, and then turned his large head and cocked it to the side. The floor shook and the walls rattled as the dragon cracked its tail through the air and lashed the floor, churning up a big sooty cloud of ash. Hello, sweet prince, May cooed. Ben's eyes widened in panic, but it was too late. The young bull drake's attention quickly turned toward May. You're so smart! Look at you, she cooed. Prince reared up on his haunches and flexed his massive black sails that spanned the whole length of the large room. May, he exclaimed in panic, but he could not reach her. All he could see was the shadowy outline of her murky silhouette through the thin, segmented, spidery web curtain of membrane that was cast by the lantern light. Ben ducked. He felt the sound wave and heard the bone-chilling whiz crack as Prince's tail cut through the air, crushing the metal lantern on the wall. The light vanished. May vanished. May! He called again. Above the rhythmic, slow, steady, rumbling growl, he heard her soft, gentle voice. She was still alive. Your wings are so big and beautiful, May called out to the dragon in a soft, sing-song voice. Don't go in there! You'll be trapped, Ben pleaded. But May was already slowly backing into the dragon's stall. Does your poor head hurt? May cooed softly. To Ben's surprise, Prince let out a mournful howling thrum as he sat down on all fours. Large, hot tears ran down his face as he lowered its head. May gave him a soothing, shushing sound as she reached up, stroking around the bull drake's thorny forehead. Ben watched helplessly as he held his breath as May quietly led him into the stall. Ben held his breath. He knew just one wrong move on his part would get them both torn to shreds. It was all up to May now. Or rather, it was all up to Prince. One wrong move, and they'd be just another statistic in a safety briefing. After what seemed like the longest 5 minutes in his life, May slowly got up and walked out of the dragon's stall. Ben let out a ragged breath. Prince was curled up on the floor in a deep, restful sleep. Once the door was shut, Ben turned to May. May smiled back at him. His head was hurting, and he didn't get to go flying today. And Rex did, she explained. Wait, how do you know that? He gasped in wonder. He told me, May giggled. Ben frowned. They can't talk, he huffed. Not like us. No, it's more like pictures and smells and things. It's really complicated. They think and see things completely different than we do, May explained. A lot of it's gibberish. Well, it would be for us, but I think it would mean something to them, she mused out loud. May, that is so dangerous. Don't ever do that again, he pleaded. He engaged me first. It would have been rude not to respond, she insisted. Ben grunted. Just don't do that so much. You're just lucky Master Simmons is a telepath as well. Not all dragons like that, you know, he insisted. Like you, May giggled. Yeah, but I won't eat you. May smiled over toward him. You wear your feelings on your sleeves. I don't need to read your thoughts, she teased him. Ben glowered at her. I suppose you'll know what I'm going to say next, he grunted. You were scared? I was too, and I'm glad you're all right, May assured him. Ben's hands unclenched and his shoulders relaxed. I suppose the tour is over, May sighed. Ben gave a sheepish shrug. Would you like to see the gear room? He suggested. May's eyes lit up, and she quickly nodded. Ben grinned and led her out of the stables into a side hall. Take off your shoes. It helps keep the ash and dust being dragged all over the place, he instructed. The gear room was immaculate. It was brightly lit with candles and full of colorful tapestries. Along the walls were private stations where each Dragon Master had their gear polished and set out on wooden armor stands. I thought they would be more colorful, May remarked, her voice slightly disappointed. Ben shook his head. No, they have been specifically lacquered with dull matte colors. The last thing they want is for their dragons to be intensely fixated on whatever they're wearing. May giggled. You mean like hatters? She laughed. It must be terribly cold up there. What does her master do when they are out flying? She asked. Ben grinned. Well, it's sort of tricky. Master Solson has the helmet and goggles sort of smuggled into the saddlebag while she isn't looking, and he puts them on during flight and stows them back away before dismounting, he explained. Most dragons grow out of it, but not her. I don't know why, Ben shrugged. It's because a boy used to throw rocks at her when she was a hatchling, May explained. Ben frowned and gave May a look of disapproval. Hatters was caught stealing chickens and ate the farm boy's dog. The poor kid was bawling his eyes out. Oh, that's horrible. I had no idea, she gasped. They aren't sweet, innocent doves, May. Please don't do that anymore. You might get hurt, he insisted. May offered a sheepish grin. I haven't done it since you told me not to, she giggled. Ben let out a frustrated grunt. Just be careful. Not everyone likes their heads being cracked open like eggs, he grumbled. I didn't crack her head open. She happily shared it with me when I asked, May giggled. Ben sighed. He supposed he couldn't argue with success. Still, all the Dragon Masters cautioned against it, even Master Simmons, and he was a telepath. Then again, the Dragon Masters did a lot of things that they said not to do. You know, May commented, I'm surprised that they don't use scales. I heard of other riders wearing dragon scales. Ben nodded. Some colonies they do, but Master Don Roscal didn't approve of it. Everyone here regarded him so highly they followed his example. He pointed out and grinned as he showed her the dark maroon studded leather harness. While the armor wasn't very colorful, May couldn't help but admire the black pyramid-shaped metal studs that flowed in a near-seamless pattern on the outside. Or at least she tried to admire it, as Ben seemed to be very excited about it. That brigading set on the rack belongs to Magi Simmons. You can tell because he is so tall and spindly, he pointed out. Brigandini? May asked. Brigadine, Ben corrected her. Every diamond stud represents a small, interlocked metal plate riveted between the fabric, sort of like scales or roofing tiles underneath. It's a lot easier to get on than full-plate harness, and a lot more flexible, he explained. But why did they stop wearing scales? She asked. She had always romanticized about having her own set of dragon scale armor. She remembered all those fancy parties as a child, and the wealthy guests sporting their scaled purses, earrings, and suits and armor. That was before such things were made illegal to wear out in public, as there was no telling how they had been acquired. Some may have been shed naturally, others not so much. No one has ever spoken about Master Riskrell. Will I get a chance to beat him? May asked. Ben shook his head. No, he died. There's a small shrine up top on the lookout tower, he replied. May was surprised to see Ben quickly brush away a tear. Did you know him well? She asked. Ben grunted and gave a shrug. Everyone knew Old Man Rascal. I mean, everyone that's been around for a while. He was tough on everybody, but fair, I suppose, he sighed. Hoping to cheer Ben up, May quickly changed topics. I do like this helmet, she marveled. It's very unique. The wings remind me of something like a Valkyrie might wear. May glanced back. Ben suddenly seemed withdrawn. What's wrong? She asked. Ben shrugged and let out another heavy sigh. That was Magi Frey's helmet, he replied. Oh no, what happened? Did she die too? She gasped. Ben shook his head. Not exactly. You remember the empty stall? He asked. May nodded. While flying, she was attacked by a feral bull drake, and her dragon was killed, he explained. May clapped her hands over her mouth, her eyes wide with shock and horror. Oh no, you mean Norfrey? That's horrible. I heard about that in Founders. She was a proper mage just like us, she exclaimed in horror. You know about her? Ben remarked in surprise. May nodded. Mender's Hall is livid. They wanted to see her to be executed after what she had done by ordering them to heal her dragon. Ben nodded. Yeah, well, she was sent away up north. No one has ever seen her since. For a long moment, none of them said anything, until Ben pointed out toward the goggles. They use different colored lenses depending on the weather and light, he pointed out. May marveled at the multicolored glass goggles. She was about to touch one, but Ben quickly intercepted her hand. They are very, very expensive. I would be flogged if there were any sort of fingerprints or smudges on them, he warned. May quickly shoved her hands into her pockets. Ben smiled and shook his head. No worries. Come on. No more sad stories. Let's get a move on. Maybe we can see if there's any food left over from lunch. May smiled and quickly nodded in agreement when the door swung open. A tall, spindly man with a goatee and long, black overcoat blocked their path. What are you two doing in here? He demanded. A pleasure to finally meet you, Magi Simmons, she said hurriedly. Magi Simmons blinked. Ben, what's going on? Who is this new recruit? Why have you brought her here? He demanded. We were looking for you, he said quickly. Magi Simmons paused. Me, he said. Prince stole my shovel again, and I thought May might be able to ask him to give it back. May's a mage, and a telepath like you. I thought Prince would listen, but he didn't, so we came looking for you, Ben explained. The sternness in Simmons' face faded away, and he straightened up. Oh, he stole it again, did he? Well, is it still in one place? Or has he chewed it all to hell? Ben gave a sheepish shrug. I don't know. We aren't supposed to go inside. Prince was very chatty. His head was hurting, and he is upset that he didn't get to go flying this morning, May added. Simmons grinned a big toothy grin, and his fingers rasped loudly across the thick black goatee like he was caressing the bristles of a wire brush. They have been pretty moody lately. They haven't gotten enough exercise since that big feral wooldrake has been coming around, he sighed. And Prince is at that stage. I'm glad you weren't hurt getting him back into his stables, he added. Both May and Ben's faces turned to sheets of white as they braced themselves for the stern tongue-lashing to follow. Simmons glared down at Ben. He said nothing. Ben lowered his head in shame. I'm sorry, he began. Wanted to impress your mate, Simmons clarified. Ben's face was beet red. He wanted to say they were just friends or something, but anything he could think of responding would only dig himself into a deeper hole. Yes, he admitted. To his surprise, Simmons punched him hard on the shoulder and laughed. I'm not angry. I should be, but I'm not, he laughed. Is that what Prince thinks we are? Ben blinked and stared up at Simmons in surprise. You aren't mad? Simmons shook his head. Not at all. Turns out someone has been fiddling with the locks. Lucky it was only you two down there when he was let out. Anybody else would have been torn to pieces, he explained. Who would do that? Ben gasped. Somebody who wanted to shorten the list is my guess, Simmons remarked grimly. It has happened every night, so I know it was not your friend, and I doubt you would be stupid enough to bring her into the stables while all the doors were unlocked, he grunted. I have my suspicions. I just can't prove them yet. Talking to dragons is sort of like talking to a raven. They have totally different priorities than we do, he grunted. Prince talked about you a lot, May giggled. Simmons grunted. Don't get too overconfident. Not all dragons like mages, or magic, he warned. Not all these dragons have been hatched in the lap of luxury. Some have been taken as fledglings, and they tend to have a few odd hang-ups, he warned. Like hatters, May remarked. Master Simmons nodded. So you know about hatters as well? Yes, I suppose. She doesn't like hats. Some dragons don't like mages for that same reason, he cautioned. But why? May asked. If a mage killed your mother, you wouldn't like mages either, Simmons shrugged. But who would do that? May gasped. Mages that don't share our values, Sometimes dead dragons are much easier to control, Simmons explained. Necromancy, that's barbaric, she gasped. The very thought of it was wretched and twisted her stomach into knots. It is what it is, Simmons sighed. But who is leaving the doors unlocked? Ben asked. If May wasn't there, I would have been the one ripped to pieces. Simmons shook his head. Let's put it this way. If you hadn't introduced May, she would have been the one torn limb from limb, he warned. But Prince, he was on to me. He wasn't having any of it, Ben insisted. Simmons smiled. Right now, Prince is a cantankerous toad. He was just trying to show off. See if he would flinch. Next time, punch him in the nose, and he'll back off, he advised. Ben blinked. He knew dragons had sensitive snouts, but he had never imagined himself ever being brave enough to punch something that had teeth as big as bananas. May's eyes went big. Why would you do that? She exclaimed. Simmons laughed. Because he's an ornery snood, and he needs it. Dragons don't think like we do. Affection and respect for a dragon sometimes means a good rap on the nose, he chuckled. May frowned. Seems to be a bit cruel, she muttered. Sometimes love is pain, and sometimes coddling is cruelty. They aren't human. They aren't dogs. They aren't horses. They are dragons. And if you want their respect and stay in good one piece, the sooner you learn that, the better you'll be, he cautioned. But what about the bastards that let the dragons loose? Ben insisted. Simmons put up a finger and tapped his large hawk-like nose. I have devised a plan, he declared. Ben and May grinned. I'm putting you on night watch, Simmons announced. Ben groaned. Then what? May asked excitedly. Simmons arched a rueful brow. You're getting a bit ambitious for your first day. For now, you will do nothing. With time, and if you work hard at the small tasks, I will put more responsibility onto you. For now, this is Ben's assignment. Besides, only senior recruits are trusted with night patrol after curfew. May's excited grin faded away, and she lowered her gaze to the floor disappointedly as Master Simmons turned back to Ben. Do not engage anyone. Just see what you can find and report back to me in the morning. Let me know if anything funny happens, Simmons instructed. Ben grinned. So do I get the rest of the day off? He asked. Simmons didn't smile back. His voice became stern and hard. Don't see this as punishment, but a path to redeem yourself, he advised. When I find him, I'm gonna wring his neck, Ben growled. Keep this between us, and I will see you are well compensated, perhaps even some leave time, Simmons assured him. Ben's eyes lit up, but just then he paused and glanced over to May. She was smiling back at him, and then he realized he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave her, even if it meant shoveling pig slop or sharing a bowl of gruel. Simmons smirked. I tell you what. If you find this troublemaker and bring him in, I'll take you both flying whenever this troublesome bulldrake clears off, he offered. Ben gave a sharp salute. I won't let you down, Master Simmons, he promised. Good to hear. If you two stick with it, I see a bright future for the both of you in Dragonhall, he encouraged them, and then his voice changed into a low, sinister whisper. Now, this is where I start yelling, and you two run off and act like you've had a stern tongue-lashing. He winked before suddenly starting shouting at the top of his lungs. If I catch you two kissing in this room again, I'll feed your maggot-ridden hides to the dragons, he bellowed. Ben and May squawked in panic, and they grabbed their shoes and bolted out the door. They blushed as judgmental stares were cast toward them by their peers, until finally they found a quiet corner where they were alone again. "I've got to go mop the hallways and clean the latrines," May sighed. Ben gulped. "I gotta go to the burn pits and load up fresh ash," he lamented. "Are you going to let go of my hand?" May asked. He blinked. "Oh, May landed a kiss onto his lips and darted off. Ben felt his ears blaze red as he ambled awkwardly off in the opposite direction. "You lost, Ben?" Milo asked. "No, I'm just frustrated is all," he grumbled. Milo grinned a big grin. "Must be nice," he chuckled. "So was it worth the extra duty on night shift?" Ben let out a flustered sigh as he put a shovel into a wheelbarrow. "Can you keep a secret, Milo?" he asked. Milo shook his head. "No, I prefer spreading gossip and rumors about like an old ninny." "Why?" he asked. "Forget it," Ben growled. He was already missing Jason. Milo was still fairly new and had a bad habit of being overly cheerful about everything. "Come on, Ben, you can tell me," he insisted. "No way. You'll tell everybody," Ben scoffed. "Oh, I would too," Milo agreed. Ben paused and smiled. "You know something? That's it. Can you spread a rumor for me?" he asked. "Who do you think I am?" Milo scoffed. "What do you got?" "I heard there's a new batch of hatchlings coming in," Ben announced. "That's it," Milo coughed as he shoveled more ashes into the wheelbarrow. "That means there will be tryouts for some new dragon masters," he explained. Milo grinned. "That should be interesting. How many do you think?" he asked. "Oh, probably 2 or 3, I imagine," Ben shrugged. "But don't tell anyone that I told you," he insisted sternly. Milo paused, tilted his head to the side, a little perplexed. Ben gave him a wink. Milo grinned. "I never heard nothin'," he chuckled. Up next, Chapter 8, The Watchtower. Hello, I'm the author of Founder's Keep. I'm currently an independent writer, and that means I don't have a team working for me. I'm not with the big box guys. I don't even know where to submit my manuscript, or if they will even accept it, because I don't have a name, I don't have a reputation. So I'm going directly to the audience, and by virtue of democracy, if you like what I'm doing and you want to hear more, and this is a 400-page manuscript, and there will be more. So if you want to hear that, follow the channel by subscribing. It's free to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It just lets you know when I post, when I upload another chapter, and it really supports me. Not financially, but emotionally. And writing is such a lonely process, and it's so nice to share, and so nice to see that people have enjoyed it. And that means more to me than anything in the world. And maybe if by virtue of just with the massive audience that one day, maybe in the distant future, if that happens, maybe I won't be a lone glee man anymore. Maybe I will get a book deal. And thank you so much for your positive comments and subscriptions and likes, because that That means so much. It means so much. You have no idea. Anyways, hope you have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy New Year's, or just a better day, and I hope I made your day a little bit better.